For 20 years, I dreamt of making a short film, but I could never figure out what I would make it about, what the script would be, until this happened. Hi, my name is Lauren Marie Fleming, and I'm an author, filmmaker, and story coach. For years, I've been on the internet documenting my process of writing books and helping others write books, and now I'm here to document the process of making my first short film. Because there's no gatekeeping here, I want you to learn along with me so you can do it yourself. 20 years ago, I went to film school. I had this great idea to move to Hollywood, and I was going to make all these movies, and they were going to be about queer, fat women finding joy in life. I had to go to film school, and it felt like every single boy was being encouraged to go into directing and producing and writing, and I was encouraged to critique the boys' films. Sometimes I think that this was all in my head, but then I talked to other people who went to school with me, and I realized that all of us women were discouraged from going to Hollywood. And to be fair, at that time, it was really bad for women in Hollywood. It was really bad for openly gay people like me in Hollywood. And it was really bad for fat people in Hollywood. I had a professor that pulled me aside and told me that if I go into publishing and I make a great book and it gets enough success, I could use that as a way to get into film. So I went into publishing. I wrote multiple books. I worked for national magazines, and I had a couple little side quests, one into getting a law degree and one into working for a motivational speaker, as in a big name you would probably know. Then I started my company, School for Writers, so I could help other writers understand the process of writing a book. But throughout all of that, I dreamt of making movies. In fact, my hit rom-com is about a director who never gave up on that dream and went and made movies. It was my way of reimagining my life if I hadn't given up on the dream of movie making. And then when that book was out and a success and in airports across the nation and I had lines of people trying to get me sign it, I had to think, what's next? Filmmaking. I kind of had no choice. But then I was stuck with, what am I going to make? I have a couple independent filmmaker friends, and even on the low end, movies cost $250,000, $500,000. Yes, I could totally do it with an iPhone these days. And there are ways around it. But I wanted to pay my people decent at least. And I needed to pay myself and my bills while I did this. And I just really didn't know where to go. So I did like most nerds do. I took a class. In fact, I took a whole certification program from UCLA. It was a teeny comedy writing certification. And I started focusing on how to write episodic TV, which worked really great because I've been a blogger since the days of Angel Fire. In fact, still to this day, my biggest following was on MySpace. I knew how to write beats for short stuff, but I never thought I could write a short film until one day I had a class get canceled. And another student said, hey, a bunch of us are coming over and transferring to a sketch comedy class. Do you want to come along? And honestly, I hate improv. And I've always thought of sketch comedy as a version of improv. So I was hesitant at first. But then he told me the kind of shows that this professor had been on, and I was like, oh, I love those shows. So I came and joined the class. Suddenly I was studying the greats. I was looking at what made Kate McKinnon so wonderful and so hilarious. Leslie Jones, Amy Poehler, and even back in the day in these Mr. Show and these sketch comedies that had unnamed women who hadn't yet gotten an opportunity because they were behind the scenes while all the men took the credit. A few of them came and talked to our class, and man, it was just as bad as everybody said it was back then. It made me kind of glad I went into lesbian publishing instead. So for this class, I took the most ridiculous thing I could think of. It actually came from my novel Because Fat Girl. While I was editing this novel, I had a couple people tell me that it was offensive to both lesbians and vegans, which if you've read the book, it's not. It's actually quite nuanced and lovely and loving and caring. Does have a moment where it makes fun of one particular lesbian vegan, though. And she's based on an ex, so I'm okay with that. But I took the idea of what made everybody mad, this idea that people could be easily offended just by the idea without ever having read the book itself. And I thought, what can I do to make this absolutely hilarious? Here's what I learned in that class. There are 4 beats to a sketch comedy. You have the initiation, the concept, the idea, the setup of it. You have an unusual thing that comes in and kind of amps the game up or switches it up once. Then you escalate that amp up or that switch up. And then sometimes you do another twist on the end. And then you end it right there as soon as possible. In fact, studying sketch after sketch in this class, I realized that the good sketches end before you think they need to. In the film industry, we think of a script as each page of a script is 1 minute on film. So if for a sketch, you need it to be about 3 minutes max. Problem was, mine was about 7 to 10 pages, way over. So I brought it to class so we could work on it and workshop it. I asked the class, how can I make this shorter? How can I make this a sketch? And it turns out, if I may be so braggy, they loved it. In fact, the class said, please don't cut it. This is comedic genius. And so I said, okay, but I want to make sketches and this is for a sketch comedy class. So if I have this idea, how do I cut it down? What do I do with this sketch? And my teacher said, there's one really simple fix for this. And I said, okay, what? What do I cut? And he said, you don't cut it. You turn it into a short film. And that's where my script came from. I took the cliches of veganism. I took the cliches of lesbians. And then I took the cliches of the opposite of all of that, the twist, which is a straight white guy who's trying so hard to be woke. I threw them all together into one script. I took the setup, the twist, escalated the twist, and put another twist on the end. And then I ended it way before I thought it should, but right at the exact button, the hilarious ending. And suddenly, I had a polished script. And now, with a polished script, I had no choice but to turn it into a film. I think all the time about Roger Bannister. He ran a 4-minute mile, something they thought was impossible before then. Since then, over 2,000 people have done that. So by seeing other people make sketch comedies, seeing other people write short film scripts, and seeing other people make them, I felt like I saw the path forward. I knew you could run a 4-minute mile. I knew you could make a short film independently. And by sharing publicly the process of it, I'm hoping to inspire you to go out there and do whatever your 4-minute mile is. What is the thing that you feel impossible, you've maybe put off forever or done only half-assed for years, and it's time to put yourself fully in there? I hope that by sharing every single part of the process of making this movie, I'm encouraging you to go out there and use your voice in whatever way feels the most powerful to you, because the world needs our stories now more than ever. Did you like this video? Found it helpful? Be sure to follow along on Substack, YouTube, and Instagram, where I'm sharing everything about the process of making this short film, so you can be inspired to tell your story as well.